Good day, everyone. My name is Lee and I am Marcelo Mancho from Group 2, and we're here today to discuss our topic about ethics and its profession. So, what is ethics? Ethics is a field of study sort of like a tree with 100,000 branches that all disagree with each other. With such variance, how do we begin to understand ethics? One way to really think about ethics is through its historical meaning, which has to do with the person ethos. This is the idea that ethics is connected with the character and it's sort of a high standard approach to what it means to act in a particularly conduct and courageous way, as well as to demonstrate personal integrity. And then there is a more important conceptual distinction a person could make, particularly between ethics and morals. This is needed because when defining ethics, many will use the word morals interchangeably, which confuses the issue. There is, however, some disagreement among scholars as to the difference between morals and ethics. One of the school thought asserts that immorality is inherently founded on spiritual principles. One responsibility to a supernatural being or goal. Ethics, on the other hand, relies on a materialist and social consequence, not spiritual ones. In order to determine what is ethical or not, other schools of thought argue that this line between morals and ethics is arbitrary. Instead, they believe ethics is simply a formal branch of philosophy that concerns itself with the study of morals, and their justification, this group would assert that ethics is philosophy of morals. So, what is a profession? It is calling requiring specialized knowledge and often long and intensive academic preparation. Well-known professions are law, medicine, and engineering. We focus four themes: evolution of a profession, making of an ethical professional, the professional decision-making process, and professionalism and ethical responsibilities. Traditional a professional is someone who derives their income from their specific knowledge or experience as opposed to a worker hobbyist or amateur without formal education. This meaning still carries through today to areas such as sport. However, in this profession, a professional has a broader meaning, typically around some moral and ethical foundation within the practice of a specific and usually established expertise. The evolution of profession. Physicians, lawyers, and architects are becoming more likely employees of larger organizations, increasingly PhDs, or working in a large non-academic organizations. National Science Foundation report notes that many STEM-trained graduates find themselves working in the fields without major STEM focus. Modern Language Association 2014 argues for more interdisciplinary content to PhD programs. Graduates of advanced educational programs often find themselves working in a large organization. They are not self-directed scholars but team members working to achieve the mission of the organization. Graduates feel this onus of self-identity to their profession versus allegiance to the organization's success. There's rapid change occurring in traditional professions. The common theme appears to be an evolution from self-directed work to activities in support of the mission of a larger organization. Physician, once the epitome of self-employed, are increasingly employees of large organization members of a big teams of co-workers. Lawyers, another profession were hanging out a shingle from was the metaphor to launching a career. Now increasingly find themselves within large organizations whose mission has a legal guidance only. As an auxiliary function, many architects work within units of institutions that require design skills, but only because they need to house large group of workers. performing activities that have nothing to do with the architectures. These are examples of traditional professions. Brief history of professions. Students who select the profession of I of dentistry give a variety of reasons for their choice. 1 to 3. Among them are the ability to earn a good income, the prospect of independent employment, and the opportunity to serve the public. However, when they first set foot in dental school, most of them know little about profession in general or dentistry is particularly. Furthermore, what they do know is almost certainly more closely related dentistry's economic circumstances and working conditions than to any of its more esoteric aspects, such as the nature of the dentist-patient relationship. It is not the money and how one earns it are not important or even crucial to choosing a career. However, these extrinsic considerations are but one aspect of the professional experience. It is at least important to understand the scope of one's obligation to patients, to self, to professions, and to society, and at large. In addition, it is a vital to know how the various roles played by private practice, academia, professional, organizational, codes and ethics, and licensing boards are all essential components of the dental profession. In this chapter, we first discussed the historical development of professions in order to better understand their current structure and function. Next, we discuss the special obligation the professionals have to the people they serve. This is followed with a presentation of the characteristics of profession as related to their historical development. Finally, in order to promote a more complete understanding of the relationship between professions and society, we consider some recent criticism of traditional views of professions. Origin of profession. Richard Sizer states the profession started in medieval times with the craftsmen, guilds, and in inns. Little distinction was made between manual labor and intellectual groups. As small intellectual groups developed, such as those of clerics, the first requirements of achievements and maintenance of professional criteria started to emerge. The Industrial Revolution is credited with the establishing professions in engineering, accounting, and banking. Richard Sizer states that professions started in medieval times and with the craftsmen's guilds and in. Professional and professionalism are the subject of numerous works the author has drawn on Moore, Ken Sanders and Wilson, and Colliers. For the history of professionalism, any errors of interpretation are due to the present author in the context of IFIP and information technology. Reference is made to Mallet and Sizer, and a report by the Los Angeles chapter of the ACM and DPMA. While the last work is American, it should be noted the historical basis of the professionalism per is European Anglo-Saxon in origin, spreading worldwide in wake of imperialism, a fact often exploited by opponents of the principle of professionalism.
Requirements of a professional. There are three core professional requirements, each of which has evolved over time as the profession have changed. First, a set of highly developed skills and deep knowledge of the domain. Although professional skills are acquired over years of experience, must be backed up by a very well developed knowledge foundation obtained through years of formal education. Acquiring a sophisticated level of information is essential. necessary because skills based on a shallow knowledge of the area may be damaging to the profession in circumstances involving decisions that demand insight, analysis, and application of concept to the environment or problem. This requirement alone distinguishes between professionals and skilled workers, employees who have improved their talents after several years of working in the same industry, domains such as auto mechanics and landscape designers. Second is autonomy. Because professionals provide other products or services, there is always a relationship between the provider of the service and the receiver of the service, or the provider of the product and the receiver of the product. In this relationship, we are concerned with the power balance. In the case of the professional, the power is in favor of the professional. Take the relationship between a lawyer and a client, or a physician and a patient. For example, in either case, there is a power play in favor of provider of the service. If we consider the example of an auto mechanic, however, there is always a power play in the equation. But this time, the power is in favor of the customer, not the provider of the service. There are also marked differences in the way the service is provided by professionals and non-professionals. In the case of the professionals, there is more room to vary the way a service or a product is provided without consulting the receiver of the service or the product, meaning that professionals have autonomy to vary the way the service is provided without asking the receiver for the confirmation or consent. However, in the case of non-professionals, the provider of the service cannot vary the way the service is to be delivered without checking with the customer. For example, when you take a car for repair, the mechanic cannot vary from what you agree on without formally asking you. Third is observance of a code of conduct. A working professional usually observes these four types of codes. The first code is the professional code. So the professional code is a set of rules established by the profession that spell out what a professional should and should not do. A professional code protects both and professions of its members' reputations. The second one is a personal code. A personal code is a set of personal moral rules for professionals to follow, professional obtain. Many of these guidelines in various ways. The cultural settings in which they were raised or lived, as well as any religious views they may hold in any event. A personal code is useful addition. Significantly, the professional code. Third one is the institutional code. So the institutional code is a code established by the organization for which the professional works. This code is intended to instill and sustain public trust in the organization and its workers. Last and not the least, the community code. A community standard code that evolved over time based on the religion or culture of the indigenous people in the area, civil law or culture of the society in which the professional works may impose it. Pillars of professionalism. Professionalism is supported by four pillars: commitment, integrity, responsibility, and accountability. Let's start by the first pillar, which is commitment. So, commitment. Commitment, according to Humphreys, has these six characteristics. The first characteristics is the person making the commitment must do so willingly without duress, which means that the person carrying out the commitment should enjoy what he or she is doing. If obligation take the form of responsibilities with minimal autonomy, it is more probable that a commitment will not be present. The second characteristic is the person responsible must try to meet the commitment even if help is needed. The individual who made the commitment is considered to have necessary knowledge, anatomy to change steps, and abilities to complete the task. Professionals have these characteristics as well as the capacity to seek out the essential expertise from others in order to avoid potential stumbling blocks. As more demands are placed on them, they must show higher dedication. Third characteristics is there must be agreement on what is to be done, by whom, and when. Professionals who made a commitment must be aware of what is expected of them ahead of time, and who is more likely to take the role. Entering into a commitment without appropriate advanced knowledge is highly unprofessional. When the work is divided among other specialists, they must make the same commitment for their separate sections, and in this situation, dedication for those smaller bits is just as crucial as commitment for the entire job. Smaller pieces are entrusted to non-professional. They consider assignments and the commitment must reside elsewhere. With the professional allocating the pieces, such dedication is demonstrated by the supervision of team's non-professional members. Third characteristics is there must be agreement on what is to be done, by whom, and when. Professionals who make a commitment must be aware of what is expected of them ahead of time, and who is most likely to take the role. Entering into a commitment without appropriate advanced knowledge is highly unprofessional. When the work is divided among other specialists, they must make the same commitment for their separate sections, and in this situation, dedication for those smaller bits is just as crucial as commitment for the entire job. If smaller pieces are entrusted to non-professionals, they are considered assignments, and the commitment must reside elsewhere. With the professional allocating the pieces, such dedication is demonstrated by the supervision of the team's non-professional members. For characteristics, the commitment must be openly and publicly stated. Open commitments are public and quickly, easily fixed if problems arise. Professionals' obligation must be made within the limitations of time, materials, and money. When a promise is made public, there is a greater probability that the majority of a sourcing, acquire, distribution, and use of resources will be transparent, and thus the project will be completely more smoothly. Fifth characteristics, the commitment must not be made easily. Prior to making a commitment, professionals should conduct study to ensure that what they are getting into is right. And the last characteristics is before the commitment date, it is clear it cannot be met. Advance notice must be given and a new commitment negotiated, which means to having the bravery to inform others about gaps in portion of agreement so that if anything needs to be done to achieve the deadlines, it is done without acrimony. It's a sign of responsibility and dedications. The next pillar of professionalism is integrity. So, what is integrity? Integrity means a state of undivided loyalty to self-belief. It is honestly uncompromising self-value and incorruptible. The word integrity comes from the Latin word integris, which means entire, undivided, or whole. To stay undivided in one's beliefs, professionally requires three maxims of integrity, namely vision, love of what one is doing, and commitment to what one has to do. First one is vision. Vision is a ability to predict the plan of course of action that will avoid barriers and maximize benefits. Vision is an indication of strong leadership as our expert with the initiative, autonomy, and authority. The next one is love. When people choosing careers, they should do it because they enjoy what they do. because what is being done is no longer a duty but a creation. And as we all know, people love their own works. The amount of love poured into it helps sustain morality in one's activities. Last is commitment. So the vision of love put into the job binds the individual to whatever he or she is doing until it is complete. This is commitment. Responsibility. Responsibility concerns roles, tasks, and actions and their ensuing consequences. Responsibility of a professional as a provider. In either a provider-client or a provider-customer relationship, a professional represents the provider of either a product or a service. The relationship consists of three major types of responsibilities: service, product, and consequential. Service responsibilities. Responsibility for the outcome concern the client protection against bodily and financial harm after getting the service. All of these obligations must be met by provider in terms of service quality as per the client is aware. The service must accomplish its desired aim, it must be concerned, and it must have the expected value. Product responsibilities. The provider is responsible for delivering the agreed upon product in time, in good condition, and of high quality, as well as providing documentation for the product's safe usage. The product's provider is liable for any liabilities that may emerge as a result of the product's use. In circumstances of liability, the supplier bears responsibility depending on the contract and the extent of the harm. Last is accountability. One way we can define accountability is the obligation to answer for execution of one's assigned responsibilities. This process involves the cycle of setting measurable goals, planning what needs to be done to meet those goals, reporting progress towards goals, evaluating the reports, and using that feedback to make improvements.
Formal education. Formal education to be effective in teaching and enforcing the pillar of professionalism. It must be targeted and incremental. Let us walk through the making of an information technology professional. So formal education is like a formal, from the word formal, so we have a rules and step by step. So as an example, in elementary school, a student are introduced to information technology. They should be told not to use machine to destroy other people's properties or to hurt others, but this caution should be explained in an age-appropriate way. Next, in many of the computer network attacks, and a good number of the headline-making incidents have been perpetrated by young people, sometimes as young as 10 years of age. For example, in certain countries in tennis, several ninth graders broke into their school computer system and infected it in with virus that wiped out most of the school records. It is believed that students get the virus of the internet. The content of what is taught must be relevant and sensitive to the different age group and professional. The tenure of years of ini. The content of what is taught. Licensing authorities. Licensing grants individual formal or legal permission to practice their profession, which tips the balance of power in their giver-receiver equation in favor of the giver. Before a license is issued, certain formalities must be accomplished. For example, testing the competence of the aspirant of the specific knowledge and skills required. If such a test is not possessed, the licensing authority may deny issue the license. Beside testing for competence, the licensing authority also provide the license with a set of rules required to keep the license. If the rules are violated, the authority may have prerogative of either sanctioning the license or recalling the license. Clearly, a license is a privilege, not a right, and if a licenses want to maintain a right, they must follow the prescribed code. It is quite evident that in those professions with no licensing requirements, this discipline has been and continue to be a problem. Whereas in those maintaining vigorous licensing requirements, relatively few disciplinary problems have emerged because every profession strives for a good image. Many legitimate professions require licensing for membership. Licensing enables professions to enforce their rules by law. For example, physicians can lose their license to practice if they do anything unlawful or unethical. Once such a license is withdrawn, a physician cannot practice medicine, although there are many professions with licensing requirements, but with no enforcement mechanism, an increasing number of professions are opting to require enforceable licensing to keep their image untainted. Professional Code of Conduct. The primary purpose of Professional Code of Conduct is to promote the public image of the profession by specifying and enforcing the ethical behavior expected from its member. Accordingly, and in most cases, professional code consists of standard canon and rules of conduct that address. A professional code of conduct is a document that explains to employees how they are expected to act on behalf of their company. A code of conduct can include elements like the value of the business, disciplinary steps, and the responsibilities. And 10 following areas: moral and legal standard, professional client relationship, client advocacy, professional public relationship, sanction mechanics, confidentiality, assessment, compliance, competence, certified professional credential for those professions that use certification.
Professional decision making and ethics. Professional decision making. Decision making skills of an individual refer to his ability to choose the best course of action after carefully analyzing and examining the available options and the given circumstances. By making a choice, you are basically defining your position in any given situation. Professional decision making and ethics. Did you know that ethical decision making is the process in which you aim to make your decision in line with the code of ethics? To do so, you must seek out resources such as professional guidelines and organization policies and rule out any ethical solution to your problem. By practicing ethical decision making can help you maintain an honest, supportive, and fair workplace culture, but it's also necessary to ensure your company doesn't get into legal trouble or face major losses down the road. Professional dilemmas in decision making. As far as I know, an ethical dilemma, ethical paradox, or moral dilemma is a problem in the decision-making progress between two possible options, neither of which is absolutely acceptable from the ethical perspective. Although we face many ethical and moral problems in our lives, most of them come with relatively straightforward solutions. On the other hand, ethical dilemmas are extremely complicated challenges that cannot be easily solved. Therefore, the ability to find the optimal solution in such solution is critical to everyone. Every person may encounter an ethical dilemma in almost every aspect of their life, including personal, social, and professional.
Is an ethical decision. The effects of specific emotion on ethical decision making have recently been the focus of research. which has looked at a variety of cognitive processes that underpin ethical decision making. Guilt, humiliation, and embarrassment are three self-posed moral emotions that have an impact on ethical decision making in this study. We also look at the effects of this discrete emotion on ethical decision after a cognitive reappraisal emotion management exercise because that have the potential to have beneficial or negative effects in decision making circumstances. The study's participants were given with an ethical scenario in which they were asked to repress or not repress their feeling of guilt, humiliation, and embarrassment. Professional and social responsibilities in the workplace. Professional ethics are a set of guidelines that are utilized to make decisions. When there are gray areas in a decision-making situations, managers employ these criteria to help them understand what they're dealing with. Companies can promote professional ethics and social responsibilities by proving a clear code of ethics in the corporate handbook, which prevent professionals from taking advantage of other employees or the organization. Companies can also use a system of rewards to encourage ethical behavior.
I will introduce myself. My name is Jim Brian Aninian, and today I will talk about the three topics. First, we have here at the screen whistleblowing, and the second is harassment and discrimination, and the third is ethics and moral implications. So let's start. So first, we have whistleblowing. What is whistleblowing? It is an act of telling the authorities or the public that the organization that you are working for is doing immoral or illegal. So what does it mean? So if you're applying to a company and you got hired and you're working for them, and for example, it's a science laboratory, you'll notice that they're experimenting human, and that's illegal. Because that's not necessary. So you investigated and found out that it is that they are experimenting humans. So you're the star witness. So you reported it to the authorities, such as the police or something, or just making some websites or newspapers for it that they are doing that awful things. That is whistleblowing. You are, what do we call this, exposing their secrets or their classified informations from that company. So I hope that it's clear that that is whistleblowing. Next, second is we have harassment and discrimination. So first, harassment. Harassment is an act or instance of harassing, torment, fixation, and intimidating someone. So when we say torment, this guy, for example, this guy is the one who's harassing someone. So he will make that person suffer. For example, is that this fixation annoy them on something or tease them. I think it is included on harassment, and intimidation, forcing someone to do something or to say something. It is a forceful behavior of someone that is harassing or something like that. That's what we call harassment. So let's go to discrimination. So discrimination is like a harassment also. the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, sex, and age. So that's all about it. For example, you are in a one company and let's say you're black, so your boss is treating you differently unlike the others or unfairly. Let's say to the other that they are white skin color, he's so nice, but when it comes to you, he's rude because you're black. He's looking down on you and expecting something bigger because of your race or skin color. So the example here too is that sex or gender, because you are not straight or you are gay or lesbian, they will look down on you and look at you in a different way, like disgust you or something. And sometimes they will threaten you that they will do some awful things. And age, it is the unfair treating of old people to the youngsters nowadays. It is because you're younger than them. They think that they are more respectable, and they need to the youngsters needs to respect them and also to follow them, or the youngsters need to listen to them, but no, not allowed to speak for themselves. That is also include to discrimination, I think. And I hope it's clear. Now let's talk about the third topic, which is the ethics and moral implications. So ethical implications can include but are not limited to risk of distress, loss, adverse impact, injury, or psychological or other harm to any individual, participant, researcher, and bystander. So what does it mean? In ethical implications is that people are do good deeds. They are focusing on doing good, but not thinking on but not thinking the others if it's okay to them or not. For example, the old lady, the Boy Scout helped the old lady to cross the streets, even though the old lady don't want to cross the street. So it can cause anger to someone or something, or she might be hurt or that, and also she don't want to cross the street. That's funny thing though. So that's the ethical implications. It only focuses on good deeds, even though it has a bad cost or it is unnecessary to the other, just like forcing someone to do this, but it's good. So let's go to the moral implications. The phrase moral implications is more useful when referring to the results. So, for example, here is the war. It is not talking about healing, but it's talking about who's wrong or right. Just summarize the two ethics and moral implications. So Morals are one's personal beliefs about right and wrong, while the term ethics describes standards or codes of behavior expected of an individual by group or nation, organization, etc. To which an individual belongs. For example, the ethics of the law. Profession demand that defense attorneys defend an accused client to the best of their ability, even if they know that the client is guilty of the most heinous and morally objectionable crime one could imagine. So, moral is that the right and wrong, and right and wrong. That's it. Right and wrong, and the ethics is that you will do whatever it is, even though it is good or bad, or it has bad effects. That's it. Thank you.